After 12 years of financial independence, my parents demanded I cover my sister's $40,000 debt. They then sent a lawyer to force me into what they called family loyalty. Hello everyone, I've been a long-time lurker here but have never really posted anything. I never thought I'd have a reason to, but my family has genuinely pushed me past my breaking point. I desperately need to hear what others think. It feels like no matter what I do, I'm constantly painted as the villain, and I'm utterly exhausted. So, here's what's been happening. I'm a 30-year-old man who has been living completely on his own since turning 18. When I say on my own, I mean it in every sense, financially, emotionally, you name it. Let's just say my parents aren't exactly known for their stellar parenting, or fostering sibling support. They weren't the kind of parents who would uplift you or make you feel special. Instead, an unspoken rule governed my entire childhood. My younger sister, Emma, could do no wrong, and I was always expected to be the responsible one. If Emma messed up, and trust me, she messed up a lot, it was simply swept under the rug. She's just sensitive, my mother would explain. Or perhaps, she eventually learned. This effectively meant, let's pretend this never happened and hope she figures it out. Meanwhile, every time I made a mistake, it felt like the world was crashing down. Why aren't you trying harder? You need to set a better example for your sister. No matter what I did, it was never enough. I could bring home a report card full of A's, and they'd question why I didn't get an A+ in math. What about Emma? She barely passed, yet they'd say, at least you're doing your best, sweetie. That dynamic continued even after we became adults. If anything, it intensified. Emma lived with my parents until her mid-20s, bouncing from one failed job to another. She always found an excuse for why it wasn't her fault. Meanwhile, I was juggling 2 part-time jobs to pay for college and figuring out how to handle my own rent and bills. They never offered me any help. Not that I expected them to, but it stung to see them bending over backward for Emma while I was left to fend for myself. Anyway, 6 months ago, my mother called me. Now please understand, my mother doesn't call just to chat. She doesn't call to check in or say hello. She calls because she needs something. You know the type of call I'm talking about, one that starts with overly sweet small talk, as if they're trying to soften you up before dropping the real reason for their call. That's precisely what happened. She started by asking, "How's work? Are you still at that company? Have you been eating well?" It was so out of character that I immediately knew something was off. My mother doesn't care how I eat. She barely knows what I do for a living beyond something with computers. The entire conversation felt forced, as if she was trying too hard to sound casual. Then she told me Emma was in trouble. I wasn't surprised. Emma always seemed to be in trouble, but I didn't expect this. Emma had apparently racked up $40,000 in debt, and it wasn't the kind of debt you could dismiss as youthful folly, like student loans or maxed-out credit cards. No, she had borrowed from some truly shady individuals, and they were now serious about getting their money back. My mother's voice cracked as if she were about to cry, which I'm sure she hoped would make me cave. She wasted no time laying on the guilt. "You've done so well for yourself. You've always been the strong one. Emma's not like you. She needs your help." I sat there for a moment, trying to process what she'd said. $40,000. How does someone even manage to accumulate that much debt? I asked her how it happened, partly expecting some ridiculous explanation, and my mother brushed it off. "That doesn't matter right now," she responded, as if I was focused on the wrong thing. "What matters is that she's your sister. Family helps family." For years they've used the phrase "family helps family" as an excuse. It's what they said whenever they needed me to fix something for Emma, cover for her, or clean up the mess she had made. And every time, I swallowed my anger and did what they asked because I didn't want to be the bad guy. But this $40,000, I couldn't do it, not this time. I told her no, straight up. I replied, "I'm sorry, but I can't bail Emma out of a mess she created." And with that, the conversation's tone shifted. My mother went from pitiful to furious in about 2 seconds flat. "You're being selfish," she yelled. "You're abandoning your family when they need you most." She even said, "Do you want her blood on your hands?" As if Emma's terrible life decisions were somehow my fault. At this point, I hung up. I couldn't listen to it any longer. My hands shook and my chest tightened, but I knew I'd made the right decision. I've worked too hard to let someone else's poor choices drag me down. Still, the regret set in almost instantly. My family has a knack for twisting things to make me feel like the evil one, and this time was no exception. Even though I said no, I couldn't shake the thought that I might have made the wrong choice. Standing up to my family felt right at the time, but now I'm left wondering if I've just made things worse. What if they are right? What if I am being selfish? And to be honest, I'm still not sure what comes next. That call was only the beginning, and what happened next completely blindsided me. I have a feeling this isn't over, but I'll keep you updated as events unfold. I will provide an update soon. Hello everyone. So, I thought things might calm down for a bit. Maybe she'd stew for a while before letting it go. It turns out I was way off. The drama escalated quickly, and I wasn't prepared for it. It's been an absolute nightmare, and I'm still trying to figure out how to cope. Let me break it down. Things went downhill the moment I hung up with my mother. I knew she wouldn't let it go, but I wasn't expecting the level of guilt-tripping and relentless badgering that followed. My phone was constantly buzzing. First it was my mother with texts like, "We raised you better than this, and you'll regret turning your back on your family." My father then spoke up, despite his usual silence. His messages were brief and direct, such as, "You're better than this," or "Do the right thing." What about Emma? Oh, Emma went all out. She sent me a long whiny text about how her life was falling apart and how she didn't deserve to be abandoned. She used phrases like, "I've always looked up to you, and now you're just leaving me to suffer," and, "You're rich. It's not like $40,000 would even make a dent for you." That last part made me chuckle. Rich just because I don't live paycheck to paycheck doesn't mean I'm rolling in money. The arrogance in her tone was astonishing. I didn't respond to any of them. I figured if I ignored it, they'd realize I wasn't going to budge and eventually drop it. A few days later, I received a call from my aunt. She's one of the few family members I get along with, so I picked up. She sounded embarrassed, as if she didn't want to make the call but felt obligated. She said my mother had been telling everyone in the family that I was refusing to help Emma and letting her sink. Emma's life, according to my mother, was in jeopardy, and all I was doing was standing by and watching. My aunt didn't believe everything she was told, but she wanted to hear my side of the story. I explained the entire situation, including how Emma got herself into this predicament, and then expected me to suddenly fix it. My aunt was shocked but supportive. She told me I wasn't wrong to say no, and Emma should face the consequences of her actions. Hearing that helped a little, but the damage had already been done. My mother had spread the story far and wide, twisting it to make me appear to be the villain. I started receiving texts from cousins, uncles, and even a few old family friends. Most of them were vague, such as, "You should really think about what family means," or, "You'll regret this one day." Some were downright cruel. One of my relatives accused me of being selfish and acted as if I was too good for the family. I ignored them all, but the relentless barrage became draining. The situation then escalated further. One afternoon, my bank called me. I initially thought it was a scam because who actually gets calls from their bank? However, the man on the phone indicated that someone had attempted to access my accounts using false information. They flagged it as suspicious because the documents didn't match, and thankfully, nothing was taken. I immediately knew who was behind it. Emma. It had to be her. She was desperate. And if she was willing to involve the entire family, why wouldn't she try to steal from me? I called the bank for more information, but all they could tell me was that my accounts had been temporarily frozen as a precaution. I thanked them and hung up, absolutely enraged. This wasn't just about guilt trips or emotional manipulation anymore. This was criminal. I needed answers, so I decided to contact Emma personally. What would you do if you were in my position? Thank you for sticking around. I will keep you updated. Hello again, everyone. Have you been waiting for the confrontation news? Sorry for the delay, but here's how it went. When I arrived at Emma's place later that evening, I was still fuming over my decision to confront her. I hadn't told her I was coming, and I wasn't sure what I would say. All I knew was that I needed to look her in the eye and hear her confess what she had done. Perhaps a part of me hoped she'd deny it, to give me a reason to believe my sister wasn't the kind of person to sink that low. When she opened the door, she was surprised to see me, but not in a "what are you doing here" way. It seemed as if she had expected me to show up eventually. She was wearing sweatpants, and her hair looked like she had just rolled out of bed. Not that I cared about her appearance, but it added to the whole "I don't have my life together" vibe. "What are you doing here?" she questioned, leaning against the doorframe as if it were a casual visit. I didn't even try to ease into it. "Did you try to steal from me?" I said, holding out my phone with the bank alert still displayed on the screen. My voice was definitely louder than necessary, but I couldn't help it. I was furious. Her expression froze for a moment, and I thought, maybe she'll lie. Maybe she'll try to deny it, but no. Instead, she shrugged, rolling her eyes as if I was overreacting, and said, "Oh, come on. You weren't going to help me. So, what choice did I have? options did she have? I stared at her, bewildered. Do you even hear yourself? You tried to steal from me because I wouldn't bail you out of your own mess. That's not just wrong, Emma. That's illegal. She shrugged again, as if we were discussing borrowing a sweater or something trivial. Mom and Dad said you'd come around. Eventually, she explained, crossing her arms. They told me to push you harder. Bet you'd cave if I made it serious enough. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. You've got to be kidding me, I told her. They encouraged you to do this. To commit fraud. Do you even realize how insane that sounds? They didn't tell me to commit fraud, she admitted. They just said, you wouldn't let me sink if you thought I was really in trouble. And guess what? I am in trouble. I don't have anyone else to turn to. I was so enraged that I couldn't think straight. You don't have anyone else to turn to because you've burned every bridge you've ever had, I snapped. This isn't just about the money, Emma. It's about the fact that you've never taken responsibility for anything in your life. And now you're dragging me into your mess because you're too selfish to deal with the consequences of your own actions. She didn't even flinch. You're being dramatic, she said to me, waving me away. It's not like I actually got anything from you. The bank stopped it, didn't they? So, what's the big deal? What's the big deal? I corrected her. The big deal is that you tried. The big deal is that you thought you had the right to steal from me just because you're too lazy to clean up your own mess. And the even bigger deal is that Mom and Dad think this is okay. That finally seemed to get under her skin. Her face contorted into a mix of fury and shame. Instead of apologizing, she doubled down. You think you're so much better than me, don't you? She quipped. Just because you have a fancy job and a nice house, you think you can sit there and judge me? Well, big brother, you wouldn't be where you are without Mom and Dad. They gave everything for us, and this is how you thank them. I laughed, but it wasn't a pleasant laugh. It was the kind of laugh that comes from being so frustrated you don't know what else to do. Mom and Dad didn't make any sacrifices for me, I retorted. I started paying rent when I was 18. I put myself through college. Every sacrifice was made for you, Emma. They offered you everything on a silver platter, while I was left to figure things out for myself, so don't even try to pull the family loyalty card on me. She didn't have an answer to that. Or maybe she did, but she didn't say it aloud. Instead, she simply stood there, staring at me as if I were the villain in this whole situation. I couldn't handle it anymore. You know what? I said, stepping back toward the door. I'm done. I am done with you, Mom and Dad, and this entire toxic family dynamic. Do you want to wreck your life? Fine, but you're not dragging me down with you. I left before she could say anything further. On the way home, my fists gripped the steering wheel so tightly that my knuckles turned white. I was angry, yes, but I was also hurt. Not just by Emma, but by my parents too. How could they think this was acceptable? How could they justify pushing her to do something like this? When I got home, I sat down and wrote a list of everything I needed to do to protect myself. I called my bank to double-check that my accounts were secure. I changed all of my passwords, and I even called a lawyer friend to see what my options were if Emma tried something similar again. He said I could press charges if I wanted, but I wasn't ready yet. That night, I couldn't sleep because I kept replaying the conversation in my head, wondering if I could have handled it better. But deep down, I knew that no matter what I said or did, Emma wouldn't change. And as long as my parents enabled her, she wouldn't have to. After the confrontation with Emma, I believed things couldn't possibly get any worse. How much lower could they sink? It turns out that I underestimated my family's ability to make bad situations even worse. About a week later, my parents showed up at my house without a call or any warning, simply standing on my porch as if they owned the place. I considered not answering the door, but I knew they'd keep ringing until I gave in and opened it. My mother didn't even greet me. She pushed past me as if she had a right to be there, her face flushed with rage. My father followed her inside, looking uncomfortable, but clearly there to support her. I shut the door, took a deep breath, and braced myself. This has gone far enough. My mum yelled, spinning around to face me. We need to talk. I crossed my arms. I think we've already said everything that needs to be said. No, we haven't, she responded. You need to stop this nonsense and help your sister. She is family. She is your responsibility. I stared at her, stunned. What is my responsibility? Emma is a grown adult who got herself into this problem, I continued, trying to keep my voice calm. I'm not her mum, and I'm definitely not her ATM. My mother's face contorted with frustration. Do you think we enjoy asking you for help? Do you believe this is easy for us? This is about familial loyalty. You don't just abandon your family when things are tough. I laughed bitterly. Do you mean the loyalty you showed when you charged me rent when I was 18? Or when you forced me to pay for my own college while Emma had everything handed to her? Or how about when you kept allowing her to make mistakes and expecting me to fix them? Yeah, no thanks. My father finally spoke up, his voice low and serious. Do you think we've had an easy life? Raising 2 children and trying to give you both the best we could? We made so many sacrifices for you. Stop, I interrupted him. Just stop. Every sacrifice you made was for Emma. Every time something went wrong, you went out of your way to fix it for her, leaving me to fend for myself. And you know what? That's okay. I don't need your help, and I never have. But don't stand here lecturing me on loyalty when you've been enabling her terrible behavior for years. My mother's face turned blazing red, and I knew she was about to lose it. If you don't help her, you're going to regret it for the rest of your life, she growled. Do you want her to end up on the street? Do you want her blood on your hands? It was the same guilt trip she tried to pull on the phone call. I could feel my blood boiling. I just didn't understand their reasoning. I'm not responsible for what happens to Emma, I said. She made her own decisions. If she ends up on the streets, it's her fault, and yours, since you never taught her to be accountable for her actions. My mother was practically trembling with rage by this point. Fine, she told me. If this is the kind of person you want to be, don't expect us to be there for you when you need us. I laughed, but there was nothing funny about it. I've never needed you, I answered coldly, and after this, I never will. For a minute, the room was dead silent. My father appeared to want to say something, but he didn't, and my mother simply stared at me, her chest heaving as if she were about to explode. Then, without saying anything more, she stormed out. My father followed her, but he lingered at the door to give me one last look, a mix of disappointment and something else I couldn't quite name, perhaps regret. Then he left too. As soon as the door closed behind them, I felt an immense sense of relief. I didn't care about their approval, their guilt trips, or their toxic idea of family devotion. I was done. Of course, they weren't. The next day, my mother sent me an email. It was long and rambling, full of the typical guilt-tripping nonsense. She accused me of being ungrateful and unkind, of abandoning my family in their time of need, and of breaking her heart. She even hinted that she and my father would cut me out of their will, as if to intimidate me into submission. I didn't respond. What was the point? Then Emma started up again, sending me a dramatic text about how she was losing everything and how it was all my fault. She said she had to sell her car, was behind on rent, and was being harassed by her creditors. Honestly, I didn't feel bad. She dug her own hole, and now she had to deal with the consequences. A few days later, I received a letter, not from my family, but from a lawyer. My parents threatened to sue me, claiming that I had a moral obligation to support Emma and had irreparably harmed the family by refusing to help. It was pretty comical. I emailed the letter to my own lawyer, who informed me it was pure garbage. They didn't have a leg to stand on, and nothing would come of it. Yet the fact that they even tried was enough for me. I was done with Emma, my parents, and the unhealthy family dynamic. I blocked their numbers, removed them from social media, and informed the few relatives I still interacted with that I didn't want to hear anything about my parents or Emma. Most of them understood, but a few tried to persuade me to find a way to make peace, which I quickly rejected. Peace was impossible with people who saw me as nothing more than a safety net for Emma's poor choices. Here's where I'm at right now. I'm miserable. Do you think it's normal for a family to go this far? Hello again. I decided to post a final update once I had everything sorted out. So, here we go. After tossing that lawyer's letter in the trash and mailing a copy to my own lawyer just in case, I finally made a decision that had been weighing on me for years. I was going completely and permanently no contact. I'd been holding out hope that my family would change, but the lawyer stunt proved that they weren't going to stop. If anything, they were escalating their destructive behavior, and I wasn't going to let them pull me deeper into their insanity. So, I went into full block mode, blocking my mother, father, Emma, and everyone else's phone numbers and emails. Honestly, pressing the block button felt strangely satisfying. Then I went through my social media accounts and deleted them as well. There was no way I was leaving any doors open for them to sneak back in. I sent a quick text to the few family members I genuinely like, mostly cousins, informing them that I was done with the family drama and asking them not to play messenger for anyone. Most of them were fine with it, but a handful hit me with the "but they're your family" guilt trip. My response was short and sweet. Being family doesn't mean you get to treat me like crap. The most difficult part was explaining the situation to a few mutual acquaintances who knew my parents. Some of them couldn't believe what I was saying, as if they couldn't grasp that my parents and sister had attempted to steal from me, guilt me, and now sue me. One friend even inquired, "Are you certain there isn't more to the story?" As if I had somehow overlooked the part where this was entirely my fault. I felt terrible, but I let it go. The ones who mattered believed me, and that was enough. The first week of no communication was difficult, not because I missed them, but because they refused to give up easily. Despite having their numbers blocked, they found ways to get through. My mother began calling from unknown numbers and leaving long dramatic voicemails about how I was tearing the family apart. She would say things like, "We just want to talk," or, "You're punishing us for trying to do the right thing." It was exhausting. I didn't listen to most of the messages and deleted them as soon as I recognized who they were from. Then came the letters. My parents must have gone directly from their lawyer's office to the post office because the letters started arriving almost immediately. At first, they were basically garbage, with my mother writing pages upon pages about how much she sacrificed for me and how I broke her heart. My father also responded, albeit in a more direct manner. One of his letters read, "If you don't help Emma, don't expect us to ever forgive you." Forgive me for what, exactly? For not allowing my sister to steal from me, for not enabling her terrible choices. The sheer arrogance of it was almost comical. By the second week, their communications had gone completely off the rails. My mother's letters were frantic and deranged, with vague threats such as, "You'll regret this one day, and you'll be sorry when it's too late." It was all guilt and doom, as if she was trying to terrify me back in line. My father, however, didn't hold back. His emails were scathing, accusing me of being selfish, ungrateful, and arrogant. He said that I had forgotten where I came from, and was betraying the people who made you who you are. It wasn't simply guilt. It felt like they were trying to break me down, as if they couldn't bear losing their hold on me. And then there was Emma, who wasted no time playing the victim. She sent me this long, handwritten letter, most likely because she knew I had blocked her emails, telling me how much I had hurt her and how she couldn't believe I would abandon her in her time of need. She wrote stuff like this: "You have always been my rock, and now you are simply leaving me to sink. I thought you cared about me, but obviously, I was mistaken." I could not believe her audacity. She closed the letter by asking for money again, this time for a $5,000 loan to help her get back on her feet. She even offered to repay me as soon as circumstances were better. I laughed so hard I almost cried, as if I was going to fall for it after everything she had done. However, my mother went completely insane when she showed up at my office. Yes, she showed up to my workplace unexpectedly. She stormed into the lobby demanding to see me, and when the receptionist refused to move, she lost control. She began yelling loudly enough for the entire building to hear, calling me a terrible son and screaming about how I was ruining the family. Security had to intervene and physically escort her out. I stood there utterly frozen, watching the whole incident from the mezzanine. My co-workers didn't say anything, but their expressions were pure horror. I wished the ground would swallow me whole. That was it. I wasn't just angry, I was done. That night I called a family law attorney, not the acquaintance I'd casually consulted before, but a true professional. I laid out everything: the harassment, the entitlement, the sheer lunacy. She listened, asked a few pointed questions, and then told me exactly what to do. The next day, we drafted a cease and desist letter and sent it to everyone, including my mum, dad, Emma, and their lawyer. It was absolutely clear: contact me again, and I will take legal action, no exceptions. I didn't think they'd stop, but, surprisingly, it worked. My mother's calls stopped, and the hateful letters were gone. Even Emma, the queen of guilt trips, went radio silent. 6 months after cutting ties, life is different, quieter, lighter, and honestly, better. It wasn't easy, but prioritizing myself over my family's incessant chaos was the best decision I've ever made. Of course, not everyone understands, and a few relatives continue to use the same tired line, but they're your family. Do you know what I say to that? Family is nothing if they don't respect you. Blood does not give someone the right to disrupt your peace. You do not owe anyone your time, money, or sanity simply because you share DNA. Boundaries are not harsh, they are necessary. Honestly, cutting them off was the best thing I've ever done. With the turmoil behind me, I focused on work and finally received the promotion I had been wanting for years. Emma, from what I've heard, is still struggling. She works part-time and lives with a friend after losing her apartment. I don't feel bad about it anymore. She made her bed. My parents continue to share their story with anyone who will listen, but fewer people are buying it these days. It's liberating not to care. I've also started reconnecting with others I'd lost touch with, including a few cousins, and I've even opened up to someone I'm currently dating. They've been incredibly supportive, and for the first time, I feel as if I'm surrounded by people who genuinely respect me. To anyone dealing with a toxic family, I understand how difficult it is, but things do get better. Cutting them off felt like ripping off a band-aid, but the peace that followed was well worth the anguish. You owe it to yourself to choose peace and yourself.